Hey everyone, it's Peach. Today we're going to be challenging ourselves to create an original character from 3 design prompts. But that's not the only challenge. We're going to be putting them to the test by making our very own anime-style screenshot. Did I mention it's going to be animated? Like a GIF. We're doing that. So, before we can animate, we need a character. Where am I going to get 3 prompts from? Oh, thanks Benny. That's a great idea. Alright. So pilot, airport, and computer. What if we did like a TV head kind of character, but with an old Macintosh computer? Oh yeah, that's cool. I'm getting retro airport vibes. Let's look at some airports from the 1980s. Oh wow, everything is really uniform. Lots of straight edges. But it also has this kind of imperfect kind of feel. Like, the lettering here is in a line. It's a little wonky. I like it though. Maybe our character should be a little quirky. So a TV head, tall, and a little quirky. And they gotta be a pilot, right? Let's look at some Pan Am uniforms. Ooh, this is nice. 1960s Pan Am. Oh, these flight attendant uniforms are nice, but... pilot uniforms look pretty similar to nowadays. 1970s. Oh, wow. Look at the inside of that plane. And there's like a desk in the middle. This guy's like standing on subliminal floor. There's no depth. There's so much of it. Okay, anyways. I think we have enough inspiration. Let's open up Clip Studio Paint and set up the canvas. So I'm just using my default settings. It's a 4K resolution, 3840 pixels by 2160 pixels. That's just what I animate on. It doesn't really matter since all we're doing is sketching. So I got our prompts up here and our refs to the side. I found this really nice terminal control computer. Maybe it's just for office use. Probably that. Anyways, I think I'll do a mix between this and the old Mac for the head. So I like to start with shapes when I'm designing characters. I usually choose 2, with one being the main focus and then the other complementing it. My go-to is usually a circle, because most characters have at least some element of roundness to them. But then I'll go for a triangle if they're a little crazy, or a rectangle if they're more calm. But since I don't have a backstory for this character, it's going to take a little experimenting to get it right. I know pilots wear straight cut pants, but this photo kind of blends the background together and makes it look like they're wearing bell bottoms. And I really like this look, it plays into the retro feel too. I think I'll make them tall and really accentuate the legs. To balance them out, they should have broad shoulders. I think this complements the head. Ooh, a cape would be really cool. They kind of look like airplane wings. So you probably noticed that I'm not exactly sketching. I'm laying out a silhouette using the lasso fill tool. And that's because it helps me focus on the shapes more, rather than getting caught up in like the little details. Okay, this guy is looking cool. Kind of evil actually. Maybe he's an anime villain. Let's try another shape combo. Square and triangle. If we take away the roundness, it'll definitely help the character feel more evil. Plus, the airports we looked at before had really straight, pointy edges. Yeah, this is definitely looking more put together. Now that I'm really focusing on rectangle as the main shape, the character is actually looking less evil now. Which works as well. I'm gonna play around with the sketch a little more and then we'll move on to color. Alrighty. Now, the biggest mistake I make when I'm trying to choose color is going in without a plan. If I don't have an image in my head of what the colors are gonna be, I'm just gonna go crazy and spend like way too much time trying to decide. So to combat this, all I need is a general direction. And lucky for us, we have a whole wall of inspiration right here. So let's start with something easy. The computer head's gonna look pretty close to what our reference is, just like a cream color for the case, and then black for the screen. Since both of these colors have a yellow hue, it'd be good if we incorporated something a little different, just to give it variety. And if we choose a blue tone, they'll be opposite each other on the color wheel, which actually means that they're complementary colors. So we can expand on this by finding similar yellow and blue shades, or we can go for a kind of split complementary by choosing a third color, which will complement the other two. Something over here would work, like purple or magenta, but you could also go on the other side. We're just getting some ideas, so even if we don't use these exact shades, just looking at inspiration is gonna help us find the palette that we are looking for. Alright, so next I'll definitely need blue for the uniform and then some yellow for the stripes and the brooch. We do want to keep our colors as close to the hues in the palette as possible because if I start going too much one way, I'll start getting kind of overwhelmed by all the possible color combinations. Okay, I'm really liking this palette. It has a nice balance with the yellow and blue. We do have a lot of muted colors though, and I think I want something a little brighter. I also want to focus more on a retro tech feel. The 80s is good, but what if we scoot up a couple decades and check out some inspiration around the turn of the century? Dead Leaves has an awesome color palette, and actually this character, Retro, shares a lot of the colors that we have picked out already. This anime has a really defined style. The dark shadows have a really nice contrast against the slightly less vibrant colors. It actually makes the colors look more vibrant. Since our main goal is to create an anime style screenshot, we can take away some inspiration for the background too. I like how the backgrounds are pretty simplified, but it's still interesting because they use really cool perspective shots. This promotional poster uses some pretty vibrant shades. I don't think we'll use something this bright, but I do like the palette with the yellow, blue, and green. Let's take a look at some other media. You might actually be noticing a trend in our inspiration. This is the box art for Jet Set Radio, or Jet Grind Radio, depending on where you're from. It's another early 2000s work with, again, a super colorful palette. Beat, the character in front, uses a different color combination, but it is still split complementary, and that's similar to what we were looking at before. I really love the distinction between each color. It's super clear because even though they're all similar in the vibrancy, the different hues creates like a really stark difference, which sets them apart really well. Looking at all these references so far, I can get a pretty good idea of the colors I want to use. I really like the idea of using green as our accent, along with the yellow and blue as our main colors. But let's get one more reference, just to give us some more options. This is a clip of the old Tokyo International Airport. The contrast is so low, but I can see that the colors themselves are still pretty highly saturated. A lot of stuff from this time kind of has that look, and I like to think that it actually look like this in real life and it's not just because of the camera. Anyways, now that we get enough reference, let's go back into Clip Studio Paint. I'm just going through and breaking down the main colors from each image, just kind of fusing them together to make our own palette. Right now I'm shifting more towards a split complementary, using orange, green, and blue, but I do end up using yellow. Once I feel like I got a good idea for the palette, I can start laying down the colors just to see what sticks. Basically, we're refining from our references until we have something that we like. It can be tough to find a good balance of colors, so I like to break them down into 4 parts. The main color, the secondary color, accent 1, and accent 2. This just creates a clear hierarchy between each color, because the main color is going to take up most of the space, usually more than half of the palette, and then the secondary color is going to complement that main color, and then you have 2 little accents to just sprinkle on top and really give the character a pop of uniqueness. There's no rule, and you can really play around with however many colors that you like. Jumping back into the coloring, you can see my 4-part color palette in action. Now he was starting to look like a hotel bellboy or something, so I had to change the colors around a little to kind of reflect more of a pilot-y vibe. Anyways, after a little more tweaking, color is done. We could stop here, but I feel like our character could look a little sharper. I'm talking silhouettes. But Peach, I hear you say, we've already done that step. And that's true, I mean, we started our sketch using silhouettes, but I think that we've lost a little of the shape clarity. So let's see if we can make this silhouette a little more interesting. Keeping in mind that rectangle is meant to be the main shape, at least that's what we've chosen, and the triangle is the secondary. Oh, this looks a lot clearer. It's much easier to focus on shape hierarchy when you already have an idea to work from. So we're almost done. I would say this is the final step, but it has 2 parts. The first is cleaning it all up, doing the line work, and then the second part is coloring it. Most of the work is just the line art. Coloring is pretty straightforward. So let's jump in. I'm using a G pen for the outline, and I'll be switching between 8 pixel and 5 pixel nibs just to create a sense of line weight. Clip Studio Paint has an excellent function in that you can draw using a regular raster layer, or you can use vector layers. The difference being that the lines on a vector layer can be easily manipulated without losing any quality. It's also super duper easy to erase. You don't have to worry about preserving the good lines as you're trying to erase around them. You just remove any of the overlapping lines with one stroke. Anyway, so I use those for my line work, and I'd color using vector layers too, but Clip Studio Paint doesn't have that option. So vector for my lines, raster for my color. You can see I'm using the silhouette we just made as a base, but I'm still adapting the design as I go along. After adjusting some of the details, which I forgot to record, it's ready for final colors. If you're interested, the font I used for our character's face is called Teletactile, but any pixely font would work just as well. And of course, you could draw in the pixel face yourself, but I got a character to finish, so we go the easy route. This part is the easiest by far. We're just selecting the colors from our draft and applying them to the clean line art. I got my line layers set to reference mode so that the fill tool will only paint what's on these layers. I like to start by laying down the shadows and then go over it with the lighter tones, kind of painting in where the light will hit our character. It's alright if our shadows aren't exact. It's more important that the image as a whole has a really nice balance to it. And with some final adjustments, our character is complete. I'm really happy with how they came out. I feel like we incorporated a whole bunch of different design elements to really capture each prompt. And in doing so, I feel like the character has a really nice sense of their personality embedded into the design. The shapes that we use make the character feel trustworthy, I think a little clumsy, and definitely old-fashioned. And I think those actually kind of describe an airport pretty well. Also, the pointy edges don't feel threatening, which is good because our character is not evil or menacing at all. Instead, they actually make the character feel structural, and I also think it adds to the overall quirkiness. So, now that we have our character, the next step is to bring them into the world and see what kind of scene we can create for our animated screenshot. We'll go over some rough animation, shot selection, a little bit of background layout, keyframes, timing, and lots more. I hope you enjoyed creating this character with me, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Peach out!